Benjamin Simpson. And this story is, I go to a place called Story Salon every Wednesday night in Studio City, which is true stories 7 minutes long. And so I go there and read. So this is one of the stories I read there. It's called Mr. T in an Elevator. It hadn't been a good day. Then Mr. T stepped into my elevator. I was working as a motorcycle courier in LA and had met a few celebrities. Drew Carey once answered the door in his bathrobe, and Val Kilmer saw my motorcycle and commented that it was a great bike. He used to have one just like it. But that particular day, there were a few reasons to be in a bad mood. My motorcycle had started misfiring at low RPMs and was hard to start, which meant that I was going to have to work on it again and spend more money on it. Which got me thinking about how little money I made as a courier. Way too little money to risk my life delivering paychecks to stars in the hills. A few days ago, I had come to the realization that the girl I was dating never called me. I was the one that called her. So I'd stopped calling to see what would happen, and over the past few days she had not called. And that was the end of that relationship. But my mind, being what it is never satisfied with just contemplating money and girls. It takes those initiations and depressions and digs. I knew, as I split lanes on the freeway, that the reason why I had no money and was working as a courier was that my writing photography were crap, which is not a good thing to contemplate while doing death-defying stunts in the middle of LA traffic. It didn't help that I'm walking in and out of offices that make my apartment look like they didn't survive Katrina. I looked at the huge waiting rooms with leather couches designed by someone with a flair for the odd rather than the comfortable. The art on the walls was definitely cost more than my motorcycle, and the ladies behind the counters hardly even noticed that I was alive. Today, I am in the Virgin Building next to the La Brea Tar Pits. The place is open and clean, and the men wear jeans bought at boutiques in West Hollywood. I smile while delivering the package, while grumbling inside that Richard Branson wanders the world in his private jet. As I wait in the Virgin elevator, attempting to leave by pushing the door close button, Mr. T comes around the corner and enters just as the doors are closing. He looks exactly like he did in the 80s. The trademark black crop mohawk and a pile of goat chains and thick black arms, and usually stern look on his face. He glanced at me and I smiled shyly, and he said, "How you doing?" And I said, "How you doing?" He smiled back and said in his gruff voice, "Good. How about you?" I answered with a, "It's definitely been better." Mr. T nodded a knowing smile, looked at me, and down at the floor. When he looked back up again, he was serious. "You need to work at it. It's not easy." Mr. T has charisma and charm, and I felt all of it as he continued to tell me about how my life was going to get better. He was there looking at me with his eyes that had known problems and overcome them. His voice carried both sadness and hope. In some sort of way, it was like those huge arms holding me up. And he was using them with strength to hold me rather than violence. And the door of the elevator opened, and Mr. T walked out, but paused for a moment, glanced back, and said that it would all work out. I was smiling as I climbed aboard my motorcycle. I felt my job wasn't too bad. I got to ride a motorcycle around all day, be able to pay my bills, and while I'd be able to find another girl. It wasn't until hours later, hanging out with friends, really struck home what had happened to me that day when I said to them, "You won't believe what happened to me today. I got a motivational speech from Mr. T in an elevator, and it worked." All right, I've only got 20 more stories like that, so
Yeah,
we'll go through them
you
all.
can read another one. We've got time.
Another one?
Rest
How
in
much
here.
time do we have?
How much time don't we have?
Let's see here. What else? What else do I have? Oh, all right. We'll try this one. Sorry, I don't have the lighter. I had it the last time I told this story, but it's an actual real lighter. This one is Her Majesty's Prison Only. I was walking with my camera as I do. It was mid-October 2009, and I was in southern England, specifically in a city called Exeter. A beautiful city with a cathedral, 1,000-year-old city walls, and a university. After taking a few pictures of the small lanes crookedly leading from the high street, I came across a small square park. It was just an empty grass field and a few gnarled trees, and a surrounding knee-high stone wall. There was a man in the field, and a young lady wearing a school uniform who looked to be in her early teens. The man was probably in his mid-50s and was shirtless. His hair was cropped to the skull. His right arm was in a forearm cast, and he had tattoos. He moved like he was drunk. He must have breakfasted on beer. It was only noon. He swayed back and forth and rose on his tiptoes as he leant forward to say something to the girl, like he wanted to tower over her even more. And then he would slightly lose his balance and sway back on his heels. The girl was standing strong, but I could tell she was intimidated. Her posture was upright and stiff, trying to look relaxed. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but she obviously kept saying that she needed to go. As she kept making leaving motions with her shoulders, but he wouldn't let her, not physically, but verbally. He kept asking her questions and saying the important things to say. I entered the park, was sure that nothing strange was going to happen, and walked vaguely near the odd couple, holding up my camera to take pictures. The man noticed me, which gave the girl an out. She left the park. He came up to me. The first thing he said was, "I just got out of prison this morning." And I could smell the beer on his face, just a little too close for polite conversation. He waved a piece of paper around in his left hand and announced to me and the empty park that he was the first person to be put in prison for antisocial behavior in Cornwall. He saw the doubt in my eyes and pushed the paper in front of my face, and there was just time to see the official government stamp and the words "antisocial behavior" in large letters and the word "release." But he had misunderstood the doubt in my eyes. I definitely didn't doubt that he had been in prison for antisocial behavior, but he was the first one in Cornwall to be put in prison for antisocial behavior. Nothing is against the Cornish people. He shoved out his right hand with the four fingers wiggling in the cast that ended at his knuckles, so I shook his fingers and noticed that he had love tattooed on his knuckles, and sure enough, hate on the other hand. He told me his name was Gary Cooper. I didn't make any mention of the actor, so I kept my mouth shut. He asked me, while he kept his feet perfectly planted, but his upper body rocking motions, if I was a writer, because he had a life story that would make a great book. Before I could answer, he told me again that his life was a great story. I said that I was only a photographer, and he looked at the camera, said it was a nice camera, in a way that made me suspicious, and said it was a shame because we could have made lots of money with his life story. Mr. Cooper said that he liked me, and he invited me over for a beer. He sat down on the grass, surrounded by his backpack and assorted possessions, and pulled out a can of lager, one of the strong, cheap ones. I turned down his offer for a beer, and then he told me that he liked me again. He said he was a good judge of character, and I was a good person because he wanted to give me something because I was such a good person. I was crouched on my feet, ready to spring away because it gave me a feeling of menace. Like at one moment he announces he likes you, and the next his mind twists from something innocuous you said and decides it'd be better to hit you. He pulled something out of his pocket, held it out for me. It was a lighter. A simple black disposable lighter. I said I didn't need a lighter, but he insisted over and over and over again that I was good and I was a good person, he liked me. Didn't want to take the lighter. I didn't want to have to owe him anything. So I said I'd trade, and I pulled out my black lighter and we traded. I looked at the lighter and it said HM Prisons Only. Her Majesty's Prisons Only. My mind lit up. This is a great souvenir. I thanked him profoundly for the lighter, and after a few moments, I said I had to leave. He stood up with me and held his hand for me to shake his fingers again. Mr. Cooper told me again what a great person I was, and then his mind wandered to something else as he talked to me, and I let him for a few more minutes, and finally I told Mr. Cooper that I had to leave. He put out his hand, and I shook his hand again, and after the shake, I left. But after a few steps, he called out to me, "Do you know what I do?" I stopped and turned around, afraid of what he was going to say. He repeated it again, "Do you know what I do?" And when he knew he had my attention, he simply said, "I just drink." On that, I left the If anybody wants to see Mr. Cooper,